Welcome back to episode 84 of In the Shadow of the Evening Trees. I'm Jen Von Ebers.
I'm Dave Von Ebers.
And our cat Gordy just came in the room. She's been sleeping.
Yeah, all day until right now.
And now she's going to be in our business. So if you hear her crying or getting our attention, she's entered the room.
She's lovely though. She's a nice cat. So
yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, exactly. We tolerate her interference sometimes because what are you going to do?
Exactly. So we're back after a mini hiatus.
Hiatus.
But we have been busy doing fun
Get
things.
up my computer in case there's something I need to look up on the fly.
Any facts that you need to check.
I need to fact check Jennifer.
I think it's still going.
I think it's still going. It's funny.
Technical difficulties.
We're doing two things at once,
yeah.
As we do. We're recording audio separately.
Everything's fine.
Everything is fine. There wasn't an earthquake.
The cat didn't jump on the keyboard.
Not this time. She will at some point. Anyway, sorry about the confusion.
So it is July 5th, 2025, and it was, we've had a nice staycation. We took Wednesday, Thursday, and we had Friday off for a long 5-day weekend, which we think that would be nice. Just to have a 5 days off per week would be good. 2 days on working.
Work 2 days, take 5 days off.
Yeah, I think we can get behind that.
That or retiring.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people complain that they'd get bored if they were retired. I think it would work out. I actually think it would be just fun.
I'm pretty sure I can come up with things to do.
Yeah. Especially in the summer when we have a pool.
Yes, for sure. And actually the weather has been perfect pool weather because it's been in the high 80s, 90s, sunny, pretty much the whole week.
Yes.
And just a tiny bit of rain. And other than that, it's been spectacular. So we can tell them about, we grilled pizza again for the second time.
Well, we have to go back to...
We have to go back.
So the last time we recorded, we had gotten back from a trip to Georgia and South Carolina. Yes. We talked about that. And then we had a very busy couple of weeks after that because our daughter came up for a belated Father's Day thing. Mm-hmm. And then we had...
Last weekend was insane.
Last weekend was insane, right? Because that's right. That would be 2 weeks after we got back from our own trip.
Yeah, we had just everything happening in the same thing, and we're just like, let's just do it. So it started with friends of ours who invited us to a cookout at their house. Lovely.
It was very nice.
So we did that, and then we went to the second showing of...
Second for us.
Showing for us, the documentary Garland Jeffreys. King of In Between. Yes.
That was the name of one of his
albums.
It was kind of his comeback album around 2011.
And so we are personal friends with Garland Jeffreys and his wife Claire, and she personally invited us, let us know that she was coming to Chicago to debut it at the place that we took guitar lessons. So of course we're coming, kind of thing. So we packed that in. Decided
after going to the cookout, it was that same evening.
Yes.
So we went to cookout, drove downtown.
Yes. And we decided we had a lovely dinner, and because we had another event on Sunday, which we'll talk about in a second, we're like, let's just spend the night in Chicago. So that's what we did. So we got made plans for that. So we went to the cookout, came back, packed really hardly anything because what do you need for overnight, kind of thing. I brought my regular suitcase. I'm like, I could have brought a backpack.
But in fairness, though, you brought the smallest of the three.
Yeah. So that was kind of funny. We stayed there, and then Sunday was the Pride Parade in Chicago, and we're representing. If you're watching, if you're listening, we have our Lambda Legal t-shirts that they had for this year's Pride Parade, and we actually were on the float this year, which was amazing.
Not to say we were being lazy.
No.
But we're old, and it was hot.
90 degrees out.
It was very hot and humid.
Yeah. So it was just a very, very packed weekend. So it was nice to looking forward to having 5 days off after all that. And we had talked about this actually the last few summers. It's like, why don't we just take time off to hang out in our backyard?
Yeah.
And just do...
and hang out in the pool.
Yeah, hang out in the pool and just relax, and and this has been all of that and more.
And more.
And more.
We actually did a lot of stuff.
We did. Yeah, so we weren't just sitting around the whole time, but
I feel like we kind of rushed over the Pride Parade.
Oh yeah, we have to go back to that. Yes.
That was kind of a big thing.
It was a very big thing. And last year we did it for the first time and we weren't sure what to expect. So that was a lot. You know, it's very, so many people come out to see it and everything. And just like so amazing. I just love the atmosphere. I just love the people. The people at Lambda Legal could not be nicer. Yeah. And the people who volunteer for Lambda also couldn't be nicer. And it's just a lovely atmosphere. So when we were said we were going to come back this year, obviously we saw that the weather was going to be very hot.
Yes.
And so I said to David when we were getting ready to go there, I'm like, I wonder if we just ask, can we be on the parade, the float, versus walking next to it, handing out things and everything. And luckily for us, one of the people that works there, Elliot, is a friend of ours, and his dad is friends with David for 40 years. 50 years.
Well, yeah, approaching 50 years.
Exactly.
That's right. Holy cow.
So when we got there, I was like, hey, Elliot, what are the chances that David and I can actually be on the float? And he's like, yeah. So that was amazing. And that was a fun way to do it too, because you still got the excitement of the crowd and everything. And it did rain a little bit here and there, which was fun. It was sunny.
Actually good that it rained.
So happy.
Of the heat. Yeah.
At first I was like, what is that?
Yeah. Well, because there were bubble machines everywhere, and we didn't know whether it was bubble
juice.
Is that a thing?
It is, I guess so. And I wasn't sure what that was, but I'm like, no, it's actually rain. And people know who Lambda Legal is because they are an organization, we've talked about them before, that is in the fight, to help people. Right. And you can't see the back of our shirts, but the back of their motto is,
turn around.
Is
this your thing? This is a tight space. You'll just have to excuse us. Can you see it?
Yes, we have your back.
I'll go like this.
Exactly.
Yeah, because we do. We have your back.
Yeah.
I say we because we're pretty involved these days.
Yeah, and it is, people recognize that. And so when they saw the parade, the float, and, all the posters and things of, the cheering part of it is exciting too, because they're like, because they are very, high level cases that they're taking.
Oh, yeah.
So it's not just like a small thing, but they are relentless and been very successful in, winning cases and stuff like that. But it's just... it's very exciting to be a part of.
It really is, and it's just been a fun couple of years since we've gotten more involved with the organization, and we're gonna stay involved. You know, this is a time where they need more help than ever before. And by the way, you can always donate to Lambda Legal.
Yes,
so
they are 100% fundraised corporation for 50 years, so that is tremendous to keep going year after year after year, just on fundraising alone. So that's amazing.
And it also makes them no one is completely safe from this current administration, but it makes it, the fact that they don't get any public funding is actually good in this context, because it means they're not vulnerable, or as vulnerable as some organizations.
Getting funds taken away.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And if this is the first time you're listening to us, we are...
Why?
Exactly.
Why haven't you been listening? Yeah, where have you been?
Our oldest daughter is transgender, so we are in it because that is the community who is the most vulnerable, the most attacked right now. And so we feel like, as parents, we need to do something, just to kind of like whatever we can do kind of thing is just, and this is a small way that we can help in that. Yeah,
absolutely. And it is, I post, on a platform like LinkedIn, you're not going to get super political or anything like that. But last year we did it. We've done this benefit, the Bon Foster Civil Rights Celebration, the last couple of years we've been involved in. I'll post things on LinkedIn just, mentioning that we did these things. And you get a surprising amount of positive feedback from that. I have friends in the legal profession who may not necessarily share all of my political views, but very often they'll like posts about this topic because I do think, everything has sort of become politicized nowadays. But the reality is, when you're talking about basic civil rights for people, I don't really think that's a political issue. I mean,
not at all.
I think of politics as more like how much should the government regulate business or not regulate business? Or should we raise taxes or lower taxes? Those kind of things.
For sure.
I don't really think that someone's fundamental, civil rights is political in the same sense of like tax policy or regulating business or those kind of things. So I think there are a lot of people who might be politically conservative or just, more towards the center on these issues who really do want to make sure everybody has a fair shot. And they're not opposed to equal rights for different groups of people because it's got nothing to do with right versus left politics. It's just basic humanity.
For sure.
That's my view of it.
Exactly. So we survived the heat.
That's right. And then we had to walk back to our hotel.
Then we had an hour walk back to our hotel. So at least we didn't have to do, an hour and a half walk on the parade and then an hour walk there. So we escaped that. But it's just if you ever get a chance to attend the Pride Parade, it's a very long parade. So there's many different places in the city,
right,
from the north side all the way down to Diversey where you can see it. So plenty of streets that you can go to. My favorite part was seeing people in apartment buildings in their like second, third, fourth, fifth floor
hanging out the windows,
balcony,
waving.
Just with signs, balloons, party, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah,
so
that was neat.
that is really fun, and we met a lot of nice people while we were waiting with our group to get started.
Absolutely.
So and had a nice walk in the city, albeit hot.
It was hot, and walking back to the hotel was hot. But we got our normal weekend walk in because we didn't have time to do it on Saturday when we normally would have. So Sunday was the substitute.
The funny thing is that, and we were planning how this was gonna all unfold. We were kind of like having all our ducks in a row of thinking, okay, we're gonna go here, and then we're gonna do this, and we'll take an Uber to the event on Friday night. We'll eat the restaurant at the end of the block of Old Town. Totally worked.
But we drove to the.
Oh yeah, that's right. We drove to that.
Yeah.
So, but everything turned out the way we wanted it to. So there was no hiccups or anything like that. So that is also a blessing.
Yeah, it worked out remarkably well. Kind of a strange thing. And what else happened at the barbecue?
Okay, we got introduced to something that's going to change. It's going to change our life.
It's a life-changing experience.
And we're going to share it with you. So a few days before the barbecue, we texted the host and hostess, asking our friends.
Well, you did because you're better about that than I am. But thank you for saying we did.
I included you in the text.
You tagged me in the
yeah. Asking what we could bring to the barbecue, and she said either green salad, caprese salad, and some non-alcoholic beer. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I know nothing about non-alcoholic beer.
Same.
Other than the O'Douls that I had while being pregnant 30 years ago.
100 years ago. Yeah.
So,
O'Douls.
I know, and it had nothing.
Not the greatest.
Knew nothing of anything of the sort since. So I stopped at Trader Joe's because I had an early day on Friday, got stuff for the caprese salad. As I'm driving, I'm like, I didn't even check to see if they had non-alcoholic beer.
And
I'm sure they do.
I wouldn't be surprised.
But that was actually good that I didn't, because when I got home, I Googled what is the best non-alcoholic beer on the market right now. And this company came up over and over again, Athletic Brewing.
Yeah.
So they are, I don't even know where they're located, but I do know that it is the only brewery in the United States that's non-alcoholic.
Solely dedicated to non-alcohol. I think, and I looked at one of the cans yesterday, I think they have a place in Connecticut and then in, I want to say, San Diego.
Okay.
So like on either coast.
So we brought 2 different flavors of that. It was an IPA and
it's kind of like a Pilsner. I think it's called Golden Dawn or something.
Yes.
But really good.
So the first crack, I had it and I took a sip and I was just like, wait a second.
Yeah.
This is like real beer,
Yeah.
kind of thing. And it took me by surprise because I was expecting it to be more watery or more just like no flavor or anything. Spectacular.
Yeah, it was really
spectacular. So then that opened our world a little bit.
Well, and it's funny too because of the way things fell into place. So they asked us to bring it. We're like, sure, no problem. We picked it up. Then we get there, and it's like we still had it was in the afternoon, and we still had to drive all the way into the city. The friends of ours that we were visiting were close by. They were 15 minutes away or something like that. So, like in a normal situation, have a beer, it wouldn't have been any big deal.
Sure.
But since we had to drive all the way into the city,
and our day had just begun.
I'm like, no, I'm gonna have a non-alcoholic beer, and it's the same thing. I was like, wait a minute, where has this been all my life?
Right.
Because and then I look at the can, and the one that was a Pilsner, the IPA is a little higher in calories. The one that was a Pilsner said 45 calories. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I could have been doing this my whole adult life. 45 calories a pop.
Exactly.
Where have I been where has this been this whole thing?
Right. Never heard of Athletic Brewing at all.
I'd heard of them, but I didn't realize that they were strictly non-alcoholic, which is
and they
great.
also do non-alcoholic like Paloma, Mule, Margarita, and stuff like that.
In a can. Yeah.
So that's kind of fun. So then we're just like, okay, kind of thing. So we stopped by Benny's to see what other...
If you're not from the area, Benny's is a big...
Beverage depot. Do they say beverage depot?
I think so. It's a big liquor store, and they used to only...
Gigantic.
It used to be only one location in the city, which I remember from years ago when I was a law clerk for my brother-in-law's law firm, which I always say is like peak Chicago. Working for your brother-in-law when you're between college and law school. But I was the only one who was 21 of the clerks. So one time I had to go. We went together, but I had to go because I had an ID, obviously, driver's license or whatever. So we could get booze for a party that they were having. None of us were invited to the party.
You were just going
because they were going to be in the office. I happened to overlook the parade route for the St. Patrick's Day parade. So they're going to sit in the office and drink beers and whatnot while the St. Patrick's Day parade was going on. So on the Friday beforehand, I had to go with these people to Benny's. However, Benny's has since gotten much bigger and there's locations all over the place.
Yes, and there's one like a minute drive from our house, so that is also helpful.
That's right.
So then...
Staggering distance.
Not only did we find out about this company, but like Sam Adams has a non-alcoholic beer, Guinness has one, Heineken.
And the thing is that I knew about Heineken because sometimes they advertise the non-alcoholic version on television. And I knew about Guinness because I think they've also run TV ads, and I've seen it in our grocery store, our local grocery store. Mm-hmm. But I didn't necessarily ever think of them as an option because I hadn't had them before. I have had probably when you were pregnant. I had no duels or two.
For sympathy.
And it was kind of like, yeah. Until you finally said, please go back to drinking. For the love of God, please go back to drinking. You're driving me nuts. No, she did not say that.
No.
But I had never tried it before. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Well, and we've kind of come to kind of a decision, in our lives, kind of thing of just like, this is a perfect option for us because we like the taste of beer.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily are drinking to get drunk.
Well, I think of Meredith from The Office. You're the reason
I live to drink or something.
There's something like that. Yeah. I should have thought that through before saying it.
But it's like one of those things where, with our health journey, and things like that.
Which you've heard about.
Which you've heard about.
If you're a regular listener.
Is, we can incorporate that, a lot of the time, kind of thing, and not miss out on the taste, the pleasure, the enjoyment. And also, like we were talking about, like going to an event during the day where it's like, well, I don't want to start day drinking now because I'm going to fall asleep when I get home.
And I don't want to be one of those people.
Exactly. No, and it's just kind of something that we're just like taking it back.
Now, I'm not going to become a teetotaler, as my sainted Irish mother would say.
Yeah, for sure. We're not going to say, like, we're not drinking.
Her mom did not allow drinking in the house.
Oh, that's interesting.
She was concerned, with the reputation, the potentially bad reputation of Irish people being fond of spirits. She didn't want to play into that at all, so she would not let my grandfather or her and her siblings, when they were of age, were not allowed to drink in the house.
Interesting. I never knew that story.
My mother never drank much anyway, but
no.
And I don't think anyone in her family did. But my grandmother apparently was
just in case anybody came.
Yeah, she was concerned about the stereotype and didn't want to play into it. So
that is so funny.
Yeah.
Even with doors closed, just be
it
nothing.
just was a thing. It was like no drinking in the house. Yeah.
Okay.
So
that's interesting.
But you think about our families are kind of spread out a little bit, even those who are in the Chicago area. So you're getting together at holidays or whatever. It's nice not to have to even give it a second thought. You can go hang out with people, have a couple of beers, get back in the car. You haven't had any alcohol. You're fine.
Exactly.
Plus, we have a bad habit of it sounds like we're recovering alcoholics. We don't really drink all that much. But the problem is, and I think we've talked about this before, is we're famous for it's a Friday or Saturday night. We're watching television. We're sitting on the couch.
Right.
You open a beer, fall asleep. Half hour later, you wake up. There's 3/4 of a can of beer on the coffee table. Take a few sips, fall asleep again. Half hour goes by. Then now it's midnight, 12:30, whatever, and you're like, well, I gotta finish this beer before I go to bed. I can't pour it down the sink.
Exactly.
That's not allowed. Half hour more goes by, you fall asleep again. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So even though we never really drink all that much, it's absurd to have just go through that process.
It is,
so,
yeah.
Anyway.
So if you definitely share if you have a favorite non-alcoholic beer with us, because we would love to know. And I'm excited to try the Blue Moon. Because I love that one, and just see what else is out there. Although the Athletic I would stick with because they have I think 4 different kinds of beers. I'm not sure. I could be lying. There could just be 2.
I think there's at least 4 because the funny thing is, so we had a couple of cans left. We bought more. That's what it was. And so last night we were sitting out on the deck having some chips and salsa before we threw our burgers on the grill, as one does, because you're legally obligated to have burgers on the 4th of July. By the way, it's the 5th of July as we're recording this to make sense out of this. And I happened to just take a picture of the can. It was the IPA. And I posted it on Facebook. I said, I'm not judging what anybody else is drinking this weekend, but this is actually pretty good, I got so many comments and likes, and people were saying, oh yeah, I drink that, I drink this, I drink another one. I mentioned it on, Blue Sky, which is another, social media platform. And a friend of mine immediately said, oh yeah, I love, all their stuff is great. And, 3 or 4 comments, people singing the praises of Athletic Brewing. So there are good options.
And I read the About Me on the can saying that they were, active people and, just outdoorsy and, they didn't want to compromise their progress, of doing that by having alcohol, but they liked beer and stuff like that. So I don't know how they make it, but they make it amazing, and definitely check it out.
We're your biggest fans.
Yeah.
Athletic
so if you'd like
Brewing.
to support, if you'd like to sponsor this podcast.
Yeah.
We'll
start running commercials.
Exactly.
For Athletic Brewing.
And then that's when you see people do the YouTube videos. I just want to take a break for a second and thank our sponsor.
Yeah.
So that we're just putting that in the universe kind of thing. So we'll do that.
That's
so
right.
As we try more flavors, we will share back and let you know how it goes. But yeah, that was an interesting coinkydink to be asked to bring non-alcoholic beer, and then now it's going to be something that we'll do more often.
Yeah, and I mean, it's I'm not going to stop having the occasional real beer.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is I'm not interested in cocktails. I've never been a cocktail kind of
Same.
person. Except when you're really young and you're first drinking, and you're probably not old enough to be drinking, and you're people order things like a slow gin fizz or something like that. amaretto stone sour.
Exactly.
You know, I will admit I had like a 7 and 7 from time to time when I was not supposed to be. But anyway, the point is, I really will. I'll drink beer. I'll have wine with the right kind of food. Like
Correct.
if it's, you know, if you're having a nice meal, pasta or something like that. It's, you know, or steak. But that's the other thing I was gonna say is that the thing is that beer goes so well with food in general that's part of the problem. Is like you go to a nice restaurant and even if you're just having a burger, maybe especially if you're having a burger, because that's like you know, it really goes well with that kind of thing. But it's nice to have it, not just the non-alcoholic thing, but the fact that it's a lot less calories. And then you don't feel guilty if you have a second one, and you don't have to go, oh, geez, I got to wait a half hour before I can drive home, or whatever, you know, whatever.
Right.
You don't have to go through all this mental gymnastics.
Exactly.
Which
and
I
we
like. It's
noticed
no stress.
At
It's
the
no
restaurant that we took our daughter and her boyfriend to a couple weeks ago, they did have non-alcoholic beer. You saw that on the menu.
I saw that on the menu.
So I never think to look at it, but now I will.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
It's not. This is not a 12-step program.
it isn't.
Although all you people should find God for sure. Sorry, I'm sorry.
So yeah, so we have just been enjoying a laid back week, half a week off of work, and so one of the things that we wanted to do when which taken us a whole year to do again is grill pizza.
Oh yeah.
So
how did I forget about this?
I know.
This was very exciting.
So we did it last year to the first time chef's kiss. We did it perfectly and it turned out great. And we're like, we should do this again. And then I looked back because I had posted on Instagram. It was exactly July of 2024.
Yeah, right,
So
right.
we did not do it again, kind of thing. And so our son had given us, one of us.
I think it was me for Father's Day.
Yeah, a cast iron pizza pan. So you could obviously use it in your oven, but it's perfect to put on the grill and stuff like that. And then we actually met somebody when we were voting.
This story is great.
Yeah, it was when we voted before the actual election, so the lines were pretty long, and it was probably a half hour wait to get in line. So
because we went to City Hall, and it was
like
all the different precincts instead of just
all in the same thing. Yeah. So the line was even out the door, so we were just stood by the next person in line and everything, and literally the moment that we stood next to this woman, she turned around and started talking to us like she knew us her whole life.
Yeah.
And just started talking about everything. And I was like, holy cow, we don't know you, but okay, kind of thing. And
you were thinking that's something you would do.
Yes, to be honest. But I would have waited a second just to be like, and then just be like, hey, how's it going? Stuff like that. But she just went right into it. However, I still have notes on my phone from all the advice that she gave us because restaurants, grocery stores, and all the things, because she had lived in the community. She'd asked us, maybe we'd mentioned we've only been up here for 4 years. We're still trying to find things and stuff like that. And so she just went through the whole thing. So one of the places we hadn't visited yet, but we did this week, was Tony's Butcher in Grace Lake, Illinois. So she had mentioned that they had amazing Italian sausage and that it might be, I didn't ask, the people that supply the sausage to where we buy our pizza every Friday night. Kaiser's Pizza. I didn't ask that question.
Oh, yeah.
But when we walked in, immediately they're like, hey, how's it going? And stuff like that. And so we said we were going to be grilling pizza. Do you have Italian sausage? And they're like, we're making some right now. Can you wait 5 minutes? And we're like, yes, we can. So not only did we get awesome sausage that was there, but then he also had in the freezer section steak burgers that were frozen and patties and everything ready to go. 15 in a box. And so we're just like, we're probably going to do burgers this weekend. Let's just get a box and then just be done with it. So we had burgers last night on the grill from that too. And immediately when we got back in the car, I had to call my sister to tell her. You did. To FaceTime her. I'm like, we have a butcher, you know.
I said afterwards, I'm like, this is the most adult thing I've ever done.
Yeah, and then my sister said,
the peak of my adult life is now we have a butcher.
Yeah, and then my sister said, you're now Townies.
Yeah, that's right. That's essentially true.
Exactly. So that was quite funny. And so we grilled out the pizza and it was fantastic. So we're definitely not going to wait another year to do that.
No. In fact, we're going to do it tonight.
We're doing it tonight. Yeah.
That's our little secret.
The
Don't
dough
tell
we
anybody.
had made 2 pizzas, you know, so we
Yes.
only did half, and we got 2 links of sausage. So we only used half of all the ingredients. So we have to do that.
Generous portions on the sausage.
Yes.
But that's okay, because that's what you want.
Yeah. But it is kind of funny to live here for 4 years and still find places that we've never been, or just exploring new places. We had walking club today, a park 10 minutes from our house, beautiful. Never been there.
Never been there. Mm-hmm. Never been there.
And
Part of the
actually-
problem is that we can't find anything, because everything is on these windy roads that, you know.
We literally
Who
live
comes
by...
up with this idea for subdivisions and things like that where
I
nothing
think
can
it's
be
somebody
a grid?
I think it's somebody who liked to do mazes as a kid, and so likes to look at, you know, if you're looking down at a thing and just like, I wanted to make the subdivision
Yes.
look like an absolute maze, and then the other ones offshoots of these, so you go in, you get lost. you
Imagine
come
when they
out.
start using AI to design these things. What a nightmare that would be.
For sure. So yeah, it's been a very another thing we did, which I've wanted to do since Mother's Day, is I planted
Yes, you
wildflowers on the side of our house. So I asked for wildflower seeds. We'll see, fingers crossed, if they grow. It takes 4 to 6 weeks. These are perennial, so they're going to come back.
Yes.
You just have to like chop them down, not chop them down, but you can kind of trim them, you know, at the end of the season kind of thing, and they'll come back. So I'm like excited for that journey. And then we had a patch of dirt in our backyard because we had a flower bed,
An ill-fated garden box.
yeah, and it was just
It was
like
on
falling
its
apart
last
and
legs.
everything. So we took that off, planted seeds there. Hopefully the bunnies will stay off of there as the grass grows, because they eat grass, kind of thing. So
As long as they give it a chance, as long as they let it grow, then they can eat all they want.
then they can have
because-
at it, because there's plenty.
Yeah,
But
that'll
just
be
not
fine.
that patch.
Yeah, that's right.
Maybe just put like a little border or something around there, just to be like, don't do this. So yeah, it's been a very eventful week.
Yeah. The only thing I would add to all of that, because
Mm-hmm.
it's been fun, but, you know, not to be a downer, I am a downer, so it's too late for that. That ship sailed. But one thing I just wanted to mention, because we had talked about speaking of Lambda, the case that they were involved in that went up to the Supreme Court last December was challenged to Tennessee's law that just banned all forms of gender-affirming care for transgender youth. That was called the Skrmetti case. It's hard for me to say that. Anyway, the Supreme Court ruled on that earlier this week, right? I think it was earlier this week or last week, because it's all a blur for me right now. But anyway, the Supreme Court upheld the Tennessee law. It was a loss for Lambda Legal and the ACLU, and a whole bunch of big...
And a loss for the families.
Well, right, exactly. No, that's more important, obviously. So that was very disappointing. I don't want to go into the legal nuts and bolts of it, although at some point maybe we can talk about that too. But what I bring it up for this reason, because we just got through the Pride Month, and there's a lot of, as I think everybody knows, there's a lot of legislation around the country attacking LGBTQ plus people, and especially trans people. And it's, it can take a toll on you if you're part of that community, if you have family members who are, friends are, or if you just care about other people.
For sure, yeah.
And so I just think it's, I know I can say for myself, I do tend to spend too much time on social media. A lot of the, certain platforms are better than others in terms of how much of this stuff you're inundated with. There's not as much on maybe Facebook or Instagram as there is on obviously Twitter, which I don't play with that anymore.
Yeah.
But even that Blue Sky has a fair amount. Anyway, all I'm saying is, if you're concerned about what's going on, you should be. It's important. But you also have to kind of watch out for your own, your own mental health. You got to be sure that you're taking care of your mental health and not getting sucked into it. Because if you're not, if it becomes overwhelming to you, and you sort of disconnect completely, then you're not you can't be part of the solution. You have to be sort of mentally healthy to be able to fight back, really. So like we're talking about all these things that we've done over the past week, and somebody might say, well, you're just out there enjoying yourself where it seems like the rest of the world is on fire. But it's really important, like little things like finding these good brands of non-alcoholic beers so that we can do something we enjoy, but not have negative health effects from it, right? And certainly not have negative mental health effects from it. I mean, I think that's really important. Just coincidentally, I had a doctor's appointment right before we went to the cookout and the documentary film and the Pride Parade, and I had a good conversation with my doctor about not about politics or things like that, but about mental health and all that stuff. Take care of that stuff because you got to be around to be part of the solution. And so you need to be able to take breaks from time to time and do the things that really you get enjoyment out of.
For sure.
Because you burn out if you don't.
And that's the thing. It's like you can't completely, put your head in the sand and not know what's going on. But it's like there's a difference between being aware of what's going on and then having it consume your whole life, kind of thing. And that's the delicate balance of like, how do I do one or the other without going crazy? Because it is an not fun time. And even, like so many people yesterday for 4th of July, it's like, I'm not feeling very patriotic. Neither are we, kind of thing. Honest, and it's just like, of course, with everything going on and, things that are coming down that we don't even know how personally they're going to affect us yet. That's also brings some anxiety of like, what are those things? Even though they say, oh, it's going to do X, Y, and Z, we know that's not true, kind of thing. And some of those things are up in the air. So, and it's okay to not feel patriotic or, feel like woohoo, kind of thing. But it is something that we're all in this together.
Yeah, and you got to take care of yourself. Mm-hmm. And I do think one of the things for me is like I'll spend time looking at things on social media, and it's depressing, and it definitely adds to my anxiety. But one of the reasons why I think I like doing this is because, obviously we tend to see eye to eye on things, but not even that. Just having a conversation with somebody rather than just looking at posts on social media.
Or replying to posts.
Right.
Yeah, getting into that business.
Yeah. It's so much better for your mental health. You can still talk about these things and kind of get things off your chest and talk about things that concern you. But when you're having a conversation with somebody, especially somebody you obviously trust and whatnot, I just think that's and we've been talking since the pandemic, certainly, about trying to stay connected with people. Well, that's one way to stay connected with people and deal with some of the stresses of the things that are going on. Have conversations with people you care about. Right. Doesn't mean you have to bring up politics all the time. But if you're comfortable having a conversation with somebody about things that concern you like that, do that. Because you maintain that connection with that person, but you also find, for me, it's much healthier to process these things in that way through a conversation than it is debating with people on social media.
Yeah, and we were talking about that too, of just like taking a breath before getting into that, of getting in a altercation with anybody, because it's a no-win battle, especially when somebody feels the opposite of you and you're trying to like do something like that. And but it is nice to be able to step back and just say, instead of that, I'm just going to talk to somebody else and share my feelings, and then you can kind of like breathe, take a second, get your thoughts together and stuff like that. So.
We had an interesting conversation with the guy who runs our walking group this morning, and he was talking about how toxic things can be online, and he said, when he sees people take a real kind of strong position or whatever and arguing online, he says he's never done it, but he wants to ask them, let's just say I responded to you by saying, I used to think differently, but now I agree with you 100%. what do you get out of that? How does that benefit you? How does that help you if I just tell you, oh, gee, you're right?
Right.
You know, and I think that's really an interesting thing. It's like, yeah, well, that person is just going to go look for someone else to fight with.
Exactly, because
Like
that's not the response
yeah,
we're looking
if
for.
they beat you in that argument, if they win that argument, that doesn't mean anything. They're going to go look for somebody else to argue with. So it's just not worth it.
It isn't. But definitely, we want you to leave a comment or question if you have this. And the other thing, housekeeping, and when they say
I forgot. I was the one who said we should talk about this, and then I totally forgot.
Yes. So we're going to post on our Instagram that we have a new episode, and then we'll have the link to our YouTube video, because we'll have the whole thing on YouTube, because now we can't do the whole thing on Instagram, and it was cutting it at 15 minutes, and so that doesn't really help.
Yeah,
so
it's more trouble than it's worth.
it is. So that's the way you can see it. We'll see the link will be in our bio from our YouTube channel.
So the audio will be on our Facebook page, or on our Facebook page. The hell am I talking about? We'll just cut that out.
Yeah.
The audio will be on our website.
Yes.
It'll be posted to Apple Podcasts once it's on our website. And then the video will be on YouTube. And then we'll just post a thing on our Instagram to say,
we have a new episode.
Yes.
Yes. So thanks very much for listening, and we're happy to be back.
Yeah.
And it's just going to be, I hope you guys have a good week, and we will talk to you later.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.